The subject of free speech in schools has been debated for decades due to the rules set to keep students, teachers, and administrators safe and focused in their environment. However, these rules have been argued on some occasions as unconstitutional and infringing on natural human rights.
The right to free speech is not limited to word of mouth and includes many other modes of communication such as clothing, writing, actions, and symbols. Cases such as Tinker versus Des Moines have demonstrated the tension that draws the fine line between protection and oppression. In this case, students participated in fasts and wore black armbands to school in order to show their support in the Vietnam War.
The school administration retaliated by enacting a regulation that ruled the armbands to be in violation of the school dress code and a disruption to the learning environment. 2 students, Mary Beth Tinker and Christopher Eckhart, were sent home because they refused to take off the armbands and later sued the school district for violating their constitutional right of free speech.
The district court ruled in favor of the school with reasoning that their decision was made to uphold school discipline. However, when the case was taken to Supreme Court, they ruled in favor of Tinker and set guidelines for what could be considered disruptive to a school environment, which are now called the Tinker tests. This case served as backbone for all the following free speech cases involving schools and the school environment.
The Tinker test prevents students from wearing, conveying, or supporting ideas or movements that would present a substantial disruption, danger, or violence to those attending, visiting, or working in a school environment. Teachers are trained to report these instances of disruption to the school administration in order to maintain a generally calm and safe classroom experience.
To explore the 2 points of view, we interviewed a teacher, Mrs. Robeson, and a student, Kyle Hayflick, in order to get insight from both sides of the argument. Do you believe students should have limits on their free speech when in the school environment?
Yes, I do, for the safety of themselves and for the school.
How have you been trained to deal with the violations of these limitations of free speech in schools?
Well, you build relationships with students and you hope that violations don't occur in your classroom.
How does it make you feel to punish or have to deal with a student for their actions that violate these limitations on free speech?
I have no problem with it. I usually don't have to deal with violations of limitations of free speech. I try to keep my students entertained and keep my lessons so they're embraced with the mathematics, and hopefully there is no room for a student to wish to violate the limitations of free speech.
Mm-hmm. How do you know when a student's speech becomes disrupting to the learning environment or is verbally abusive? Do you believe that it could be opinionated or is it factual based?
When the situation would arise, I try to just defer the situation into a positive one and remind the student of why limitations on free speech is important for the safety of our school environment.
Do you think it's okay to teach students about the First Amendment and not let them follow it completely?
Yes, I do. I think that a student is learning how to be a responsible citizen until they're 18 or 21, and there are rules and laws to keep everyone safe and keep everyone respectful of each other.
Do you believe that students should have limits on their free speech when in the school environment? Why or why not?
I think that students should have limitations on their free speech in schools, especially in the school environment, because everyone should be equal in the school environment. That's the point of like a school, and that's what in the past laws have been passed to make everyone equal. And we learned about this in my government class that if someone's free speech is imposing on the rights of someone else, then it's obviously not free speech because it's imposing on the rights of someone else. So I think that with that being said, they should have limitations, whether that be don't talk about this, don't talk about that, don't talk about certain minorities, that kind of controversial subjects.
How would it make you feel to see someone wearing or promoting drugs, alcohol, or profanity throughout the halls?
Personally, it wouldn't offend me, and I know it probably wouldn't offend a lot of other people, but there are some people who would be offended by that. For example, the school, like admins, they would, because once you enter the school, you lose some rights and you have to follow the rules that they give. So once you enter the school, you cannot like impose on their rights that they give to the students, because that just is just an infringement on what they think is a safe environment, and they have to follow it just because it's their rights and they lose them.
Would you say it's okay to learn about the First Amendment and not be able to completely follow it?
I think it's okay to learn about it, and because since we're like such a high school age and we do go to school for a different like it's not our school, it's like admin school, it's like different kind of levels at which we like attend to. I think that we know that we're losing our First Amendment rights to a degree when we step into school. So I think that learning about them for future reference is helpful, because if we didn't learn about them because we don't get them in school, then we wouldn't know about them at all throughout our life.
Furthermore, the debate has been argued in colleges as well, as students have dressed up in costumes for Halloween.
It happened just a few days earlier, really, at Yale University. I call it Halloween 2, the sequel. It's still a kind of horror story. The controversy at Yale emerged over some hypothetical Halloween costumes. At CMC, they were real Halloween costumes, which two young ladies, two women students, had donned for a party. They dressed up as their idea of Mexicans. Somebody took a shot, which went onto Facebook, which then went everywhere. And very shortly, there were protests on campus. That early version of New Left politics. But nowadays, free speech is far down the list of the things that the protesters at Yale and at Missouri and at Claremont McKenna and at Dartmouth and many other places are asking for. There is a kind of hypersensitivity which is on their agenda, which precludes really traditional notions of free speech. Since in the use of free speech, you say things which may injure the feelings of others, and you invite them to an argument. There's a huge difference between saying, I'm offended at something you have said, which is, you might say, the vocabulary of today's protesters, and saying, I disagree with something you've said. When you say...
After studying the debate on limitations of free speech in educational environments, we've come to the conclusion that these limitations are indeed needed in order to keep schools regulated safely and peacefully.